right, so we're going to get started. I just had this page up because I tweeted out this link today, so we're going to be using a little bit of a step-by-step guide. So it's mostly like kind of a no-brainer on how to optimize an AdWords account. And it has YouTube, display, and search. Today we're going to talk about search more than any other channels, but that's a very important document. You might want to download it and keep it on your computer because we're going to go through that. Okay, so a little bit about my background. I've been talking at 500 startups and been with startups for the last almost 4 years. My background has been, most of my search advertising experience came in when I was doing my MBA at Cornell and I was trying to pay off my fees using advertising for a particular company. And then I was learning operations, research, mathematics, all sorts of things, linear optimization in school, but I wasn't applying any of it. At that time, AdWords even didn't exist. It was Overture, and they had a similar platform. So a lot of it started out of curiosity in terms of, hey, what keyword should we pick? How much should we bid per keyword? Like, how do we hyper-target keywords? What do you do when auctions get competitive? How do you use historical data to predict better bids, right? What to bid, how to bid. So a lot of that came out of just curiosity and inquiry. So I ended up starting a company after school. It's called Searchforce. Today it runs pretty much 4 or 5 out of the top 10 US advertisers, and we manage over $1 billion in search spend. And these include Scottrade, AT&T, Experian, a bunch of others. But it's literally like hundreds of thousands, millions of keywords bidding in an auction. And then we have all these quantitative tools to be able to manage those. So if you kind of go back to why Google was successful compared to Yahoo, because they were really focused on search intent and very high quality of results, right? So now Google says, our ads should be like search results, right? So that's a huge thing. That means your ads should be as relevant as their search results, right? And they will die defending their first page, right? First page results, right? And that also means your ads have to be hyper relevant and very key to the intent of the user, right? So I find many startups just picking up a random bunch of keywords, competitive keywords, similar keywords, and then dumping into their AdWords, and then they don't get performance, right? So the first important thing is search intent. It's super relevant, and the way I like to think about it is you could think about, and this is kind of diving into keyword research, because when you start an AdWords account, you need keywords, right? And how do you determine keywords? So for that, you need to kind of really understand the search intent, and the way you could think about it as how would a user search? Put yourself in the shoes of your user and think about when you are at different phases of the funnel, what kind of keywords would you search for? So that's like a simple way to start is, are you gathering information? Are you comparing products? Or are you ready to buy, right? So what is the search intent? So you could divide up all of your keywords maybe in 3 buckets like that, right? And one could be just for competitors. And there's a lot more to it I'll cover, but intent, relevance is a slightly more than intent, where there needs to be a very tight thread. So imagine like a piece of thread going through your keywords, your ad, and your landing page, right? And it has to tie in really neatly and really well, and that's relevance, right? So how tightly is this keyword search query linked to the ad, and the text in the ad and landing page, right? And Google, that brings us to the next metric that's super duper, the most important metric AdWords has is quality score, right? And the reason quality score is important is because it determines a discount on your bid price. So we'll talk about that in detail as well. So that has to be monitored super carefully. And it's a little bit very kind of, Google will give you some indicators, like in SEO, PageRank. They'll tell you some things, but they wouldn't tell you the algorithm, right? They'll tell you all the variables that go into the equation. So it's similar for quality score. Okay, so relevance, you know, what do you guys think this person needs? How about food? Just clothes? Yeah, food? I can't hear you. Food, clothes, you know. Yeah, so I think it's really good to, there is relevance means different things to different people, and there may be greater priority about for some things than others. So that concept of relevance, when you pick your keywords, you have to keep the back of your mind. And again, like most of the people gets obsessed when they pick their keywords on what you want to say, right? You want to sell your product, you want to talk about yourself, you want to talk about your products, but how do you establish relevance is where there is a intersection between what they're interested in as well and what you have to offer. And that's when you get a very high CTR and higher conversion rates, higher quality score on your keywords, and therefore a lower discounted bid price. So how does quality score work, and what are the components into it? And this is a very, very basic understanding of it. There's a lot, it's a lot more complex, but the way they calculate it roughly, it's a combination of click-through rate, relevancy, and landing page quality. So when Google, when you're bidding for a keyword in AdWords, or even any display or YouTube you're running, Google is scoring your landing page also, like, and that is affecting your bid price. So all these components go into that, and that makes you, this forces you, this is a metric that forces you to be able to go back to relevance, and you know, to go back to caring about the customer, right? So for example, here you're saying higher click-through rate leads to higher quality score. Higher quality score leads to lower CPCs. Lower CPCs leads to cheaper CPAs, right? That's kind of the flow. So the more relevant you are, the more you focus on search intent. The other big metric to, go ahead.
Do the CPCs come down automatically, or do you have to change the bid in order to appreciate that lower CPC?
Can you say that again, maybe for everyone to hear as well?
Sure. I'm wondering if the cost per click comes down naturally as your quality score increases, or in order to appreciate that lower cost per click, you actually have to manually change the bid.
No, so first of all, Google doesn't charge you what you bid, right? You submit a bid and you hope for a rank, right? And then you would be charged relative to your competitors, right, in the auction. So you determine what to bid, but you don't determine what you'll get charged, right? Okay. So to answer your question, Google will charge you less, and sometimes 2,000, 4,000, 5,000% less than the competitor. So I've seen, for example, you could be number 12, and your competitor could be number 1, you know, on the right-hand side, paid search, and number 12 will be charged more than number 1 eventually, because they have a lower quality score, right? So number 1 would have a quality score of 10 for that keyword, and number 12 would have a quality score of 1, right? So the higher you move in quality score, Google discounts your bid price, and it's completely automated, right? Because they want to take control of that, right? Like they don't want, it's like SEO, right? You do your best, you optimize everything, you follow Google's guidelines, and you can't affect rank, right? So it's similar. Rank is kind of like keyword, right? Yeah, and it determines your rank as well. Okay, the other metric to constantly monitor when you're doing AdWords is bounce rate, and this is true for any channels that you manage, but particularly for AdWords, you can get a lot of feedback on search intent, you know, CTRs, you know, what is working, what is not working. And obviously, it's just not the keywords you pick. There could be many, many things affecting bounce rate, right? And it's a good kind of a Sherlock Holmes type of investigation that can lead to lots of discoveries about your product, services, messaging, keywords you use, competition, landing page design, how well your server is doing, how well your mobile site is doing. So now you have to be really careful with AdWords as well, because Google ranks, mobile speed as well, right, of your landing page. So if that's super slow, that affects it too. Okay, so the five big buckets when you're setting up your AdWords account for search are these. It's called the 5 pillars of AdWords, and Google has a really good video if you YouTube it. It's called 5 pillars of AdWords. And the account structure, how your account is structured, right? How well you have siloed the themes, how tightly integrated you have the ad groups, how in an ad group, how are a particular set of keywords associated with the ad, associated with the landing page, right? That's what I mean by account structure. So the more finely tuned, the more thought through, the more targeted the account structure is, the more you get rewarded in quality score, relevance, bid prices. Obviously, the keywords you pick, right? And I'll give you a few sources after this on where to do keyword research and how to dig out your competitors' keywords, what they're bidding, what are their budgets. Ad copy, because ad copy is the first thing they look at after they type in the keyword, right? So although you may be bidding and appear in the auction like one of the 12 people or 10 people on the first page, doesn't mean people will click on your site. So ad copy and writing and I think I have a guide on it that I could pass on to Tammy later as well on how to write solid ad copy for search that converts. And then obviously the landing pages and also looking at your analytics in deeper. So intent, we talked about it, how to get close by. Account structure, the more finely your ad groups are broken down, you'll have much more relevant keywords and therefore much relevant ads and therefore more relevant landing pages, right? So a very clean structure. I've seen people dump like 200 keywords in an ad group. That's ridiculous, right? Google recommends 20 to 30 for search. And I mean, obviously some travel companies have hundreds, right? There are exceptions, but the idea is to keep keywords tightly themed, right, and tightly grouped, so you can have an ad that makes sense for those keywords. So I think the other way you can get very, very tight controls over your keywords would be through match types, especially in search, right? So match types, does anybody know what match types is? You want to say what it is?
Yes, you can have like exact matches. So if somebody's searching for 500 startups, they have to type in exactly 500 startups. And there's like more broad ones that could be like 500 startup accelerator, or you could do like the plus sign. So it's like either like startups 500 or 500 startups, or yeah, it's like how tightly you want to narrow down exactly what they're searching for.
Exactly, exactly. So that is basically giving you more control. So for example, when you bid for a keyword 500 startups, you get traffic for that, let's say if you're bidding broadly, but you get traffic for 500 startup accelerators, 500 startups geeks on a plane, 500 startups funding, 500 startups, blah, 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 right? So you're getting traffic. When you bid broad, you get traffic from all, things that occur before and after and in between, right? It's very broad. So basically, in some ways, you're giving Google your credit card with no limits. Basically, that's what you're doing if you only use broad, because they'll send you all sorts of traffic. The good part about broad for some keywords is that it lets you investigate things you may never have known, right, that people search for. Because now, so you can look at the search query report and learn about all the things. But it's very dangerous also because you have no control over what traffic you get, right? So when we get started, if you're, so the way Google AdWords works is when you do keyword lists, you could go very broad, right? If you're super rich and have a lot of money and you have market share to gain, you go really broad and then tighten it down, right? When you learn all these keywords are bad, right, that we don't want, you keep them in the negative keyword list and you block them, right? Or you can start super conservative, right, and start with exact matches and then slowly go broad, right? So I think there's pros and cons to both. The first, you learn a lot in terms of the broad expansion first, but you can spend a lot of money. The other one is you can become very super conservative if everything is exact, right? So what I recommend would be a combination of broad match modified, which is not here, but you could Google it. It's called broad match modified, and exact, a combination of those two. And you could experiment some broad match types, right? And if you don't know all these terms, don't worry about it. I think I want to highlight what's important, and then maybe I could send some document out where you can learn about each of these things, right, when you do it. But so obviously bidding is a key huge element. As you said, right, like when you bid higher, you know, your rank supposedly goes up, but if you have a lower quality score, Google will still rank you but charge you like 50x more, right? But bid does affect your rank, and your rank affects your impressions, and your impressions affects your clicks, right? So bid is a key lever on how, you know, if you bid too low, you might save a lot of money, but you may get no clicks, right? So bidding is important, and I think the way you can monitor it's for a particular keyword, and I'll show you this to you later. There's something called impression share report, right? So let's say you pick your own brand keywords, you're bidding on them, right? And then you do an impression share report on that ad group. You will see the proportion of impressions you are getting compared to the auction in the competition, right? So let's say you're bidding on 500 startups, right? There are like 10 other people bidding on 500 startups. An impression share report will give you, hey, you have 50% of the impressions, right? Of what is getting on Google, right? The searches are getting on Google. That means you're shown only 50% of the time. That means you're losing even 50% visibility, therefore maybe 50% of the clicks, right? So upping the bid helps you increase your market share, right? And impression share. That may result into click, that may result in conversion. But impression share report is a really important report that you want to look at daily. And there is something called a search query report. Also, that's in the document that I have mentioned. It's called, frequently known as the SQR report. It basically gives you, for every keyword, what exactly was searched, right? What did you get traffic from Google? And what were you actually charged for, right? Like I said, you don't get charged unless it's an exact match. You don't get charged for the keyword you bid for. You get charged for all sorts of variations and combinations of keywords that Google finds relevant. The other huge lever for keywords ad group for AdWords would be extensions, right? You might have seen, does anybody know what an extension is? No? Yeah, I'll give her a chance.
Oh, man.
You have the mic, sing along.
So Google gives you a couple options. You can add like a couple links, like a location page or a phone number or I think a map, and just multiple options where you can augment the real estate of your AdWords text.
Yeah, that's right. So I think if you use extension, they've shown like 30 to 40% higher click-through rate. All of you guys have seen extensions, right? Maps, you know, location names, app downloads directly, sub-navigation, deep linking in the ad itself. You see about us and contact us. Instead of going to the home page and going about us or contact, you just click in the ad itself in Google, right? So those are extensions. So those are again huge levers because it gives you more real estate, like she said, as well as gives you higher click-through rate, right? And it helps the user get to the information faster, right? And then if you are a business that can just take phone calls, you can embed a phone call right in the ad, and they click on the phone number and it rings, right? Or they pick up the phone and call. So you have all these benefits that go, or if you're a local business, you want to give directions, they just click on the phone on the directions and get to your place. So it's very valuable that way. Okay, so I think we'll dive in into keyword research that I wanted to show you guys. Again, on my Twitter, this is the document that has a step-by-step guide for optimizing accounts. So if you have the UI open, like, you can actually go and do that. Okay, so let's just start with keyword research. The first super awesome tool is Google's tool itself, right? So if you go and do keyword planner right here, and anybody can get a free account at adwords.google.com. Just don't put in your credit card, and you can use a lot of these tools and set up campaigns and ad groups and keywords for free. So make sure you don't turn on any campaigns. Okay, let's just start while that loads with this tool called keywordtool.io. So this lets you, somebody give me a keyword in their market.
High-risk processing.
What?
High-risk payment processing.
High-risk payment processing?
Yep.
Oh, wow, okay. I don't know if you'll get something for it. High-risk. Oh, Espanol. No. So this kind of gives you, if it had all the data, let's just try payment processing. I know that's not what you want, but
That's really cool.
sorry,
That's great.
that's fine.
Yeah.
So it'll give you, search volume, the average CPCs, the amount of AdWords competition that is out there, and also more specific queries on what a person is human being is searching for, right? Which are getting longer and longer, right? Now with Google, us using Google for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years out of our life, we expect a lot more, and we type in very, very specific things increasingly, right? So you could see all the keywords that are being typed here. So and then obviously you can do a YouTube, a Bing, and an App Store search on what apps people are searching in the App Store as well. So it gives you a quick quick analysis. So let's say, what is the other one somebody said? Recruiting. Is there anything more specific?
Entry-level recruiting.
Yeah, so basically this gives you kind of all the keywords that are associated with it, right? You can try the same one in this tool called SEM Rush. It gives you all sorts of competitive keyword data on paid search, organic search, phrase match keywords, and I think if you buy a version of it, they'll let you download it, a whole report on it. But this is a great source for keyword research, at least initial keyword research. Michigan. So you see, like, if you had bid on the keyword recruiting, like, you would think it's for HR and for companies, right, but it's like Air Force, or the Army trying to recruit. So this is the problem with broad keywords, right? You'll get clicks from all these searches. So so that's why you want to be extra careful when you use broad. I mean, never use broad, ideally. This also gives you top ranking ads here. So you'll see kind of all sorts of analytics here. All right, somebody just give me a competitor URL that you want to use for your keyword research.
LinkedIn.com.
It's too big.
Too big?
Is that your competitor? You're in trouble, dude. Change your business.
They're in trouble.
Sorry? Can you spell it out for me?
Yeah, BURDASTYLE.com.
Is that a reasonably big company or really small?
Yeah.
Yeah, so here basically, and again, I'm showing you all this because this is the initial seed of your keyword research. So you're seeing they're ranking for 5,000 organic keywords. They're not bidding much on the paid sites. They're just bidding on 30 keywords. So I would research some other bigger company, I would say. But you can see all the paid competitors that are out there for those keywords in the auction. You can look at what kind of things that are overlapping, what are the shared keywords, and so on. So yeah, use these two tools, SEMrush, SpyFu. You can enter a keyword or you can enter a URL. And this one's a combination of SEO and SEM, and this is kind of quite a geeky tool, like really, really deep for SEO and SEM. Yeah, it's called Majestic, and for all the advanced uses that I have, we use this internally, but it's used for both SEO and SEM. And again, this will. You have a question there?
Have you found that any one or of the sites has better data than the other ones? I find like such a difference in data for every single site that I use.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. None of them. I think Majestic has the best data, and SimilarWeb has a little bit better data, and then I would put SEMrush and SpyFu. But I wouldn't. I think the only way you can use this data is relatively, not absolutely. Yeah. Because all of it is wrong, or it is, it only has parts of it, or it's incomplete. Yeah. So I wouldn't use it absolutely. Like I would use it to, find all your keywords. So for example, you can get all your keywords, right, that matter to you from all this research, and then cut and paste it in AdWords Google Keyword Planner, and it will give you better estimates of the numbers.
Even Google's Keyword Planner seems highly inaccurate compared to what we end up getting.
Yeah. I think that's the state of it. I don't think it's very. Okay, so we talked about keyword research. This thing, I'll try to load it once again if it gives me tons of trouble. Okay. Well, you could do it on your own. So two things for the AdWords Keywords Planner. You can search by a keyword if you're able to access it, or you could search by a competitor URL or your own URL. And the awesome thing that it does is it goes out and arranges your keywords in groups according to traffic, according to competition index. The other filters you can use is you can, if you look at the left-hand filter, you can filter by exact match queries, phrase match queries, broad match, right? And that way you're not getting junk, or things that are general are filtered out. So the Google Keyword Planner, you can use it, and then you could directly import them into ad groups and campaigns, right? So it's a pretty good tool. Okay, so I'll go through this guide that I tweeted out earlier, and we'll dig in a little bit more into the account. So I hope you guys have it downloaded. They'll be easier to go through for you. Okay, so what this is talking about is more add columns to evaluate that you see here. This first section, right, add columns to evaluate, is basically telling you to go to your AdWords interface. Oh man, I think I said don't give your credit card to Google, so they're mad at me. So what I mean by add columns is you would go to a particular campaign, and then there's a configure column button here, modify columns, and what it's saying is you can add all these columns. So for example, did I lose rank here? Did I use like search impression share that I talked to you about, like, and all the other metrics, right? And the reason why you want to add these is you can see them in the context, relative context of what impression share you may have lost. So it added that column that you see here. So basically the first section of the document is telling you what columns to add so you can look at metrics that matter, right? So what would you look at? So obviously quality score is something I told you to look at. What's the first, what's the estimated bid price? What do you need to be on page 1? All GA columns it's added. Did I lose rank, right, because of my bid? If I bid lower, I may have lost rank, and that means I won't get much clicks, right? Go ahead.
Is the estimated first,
I want to use this.
how accurate is the estimated first page bid?
That's a really good question. It's not accurate. Again, it's accurate relatively. So I bid like 1/5 or 1/10 of what Google asked me to bid, right? Yeah, yeah. But it's the issue is it's a credibility issue in some ways. Like they want to be accurate, but they are also charging you, right? If you're buying something from me, I'll tell you $1 million, but you're not going to pay me $1 million. So I would bid 1/5 or 1/10 of what they ask, and then monitor my rank in a week's time and see how the rank changed. Does anybody have a question before I move on to the second one? No? Okay. Okay, so talking a little bit about quality score. Quality score is the heart of AdWords. It influences ad positioning. As the keyword builds history, it influences the CTR. The CTR influences quality score. Again, some industries have a low quality score, so don't go crazy over it. But definitely monitor it. So there is a report on quality score I think you can get as well in the reporting section. So I think the other thing is, again, remember quality score is tied to the ad, and the creative, and the match types, right? So if you diagnose that all your keywords are falling before phi, it's a huge problem. Again, barring some exceptions, but it's a huge problem. It needs your attention. That Google is telling you that it doesn't think your keyword is relevant to what the searcher is searching for. It doesn't think your offer. Your offer is a combination of your keyword, creative, and landing page. Your offer is not relevant, right? And it's deranking you. So it will still show you, but it's going to charge you 5 or 10 times more than the competitors in the auction. So you want to monitor that very closely. If you want to get all geeky about it, there's a video on impression weight quality score. So what that means is, so you could Google impression weight quality score and you'll see a bunch of videos on it. But basically what it's saying is, if I have only 5 or 10 impressions on the ad and my quality score is 3, it's not statistically significant or indicative for me to even look at the keyword, because it needs some impressions before Google, because Google also starts at some number, 3 to 5 or 2, and then increases the quality score over time. But impression weight, it's like a pivot table on impression weight quality score, gives you, allows you to focus on keywords that have enough impressions for you to judge quality score on, right? So that's one report. You may have to do it using a pivot table, but again, there's a YouTube video on it. Okay, so one more thing about keywords is negative keywords. So for example, if I'm doing all kinds of recruiting, but not army recruiting, right? I could be, then I could bid on recruiting as a broad, and then go to the negative keyword list and add army. So it's going to give me all the search queries, all the traffic from all things recruiting, but not army. All right? I wouldn't suggest you go as broad as recruiting, but this is just a simple example for you to know how to use negative keywords. And It could be maybe sometimes some locations you're not launched in, or you haven't, you don't do business in. So, it could be, city names that you want to block. It could be certain colors of certain products you're out of stock. So all that stuff can be used in a negative keyword list to make it finer and finer. I think the goal is to, again, give the user what they're searching for, right? When they're searching for it, without giving them ads that don't make sense. So these are control mechanisms for you to do that. And then Google rewards you if you do a good job of it. Okay, so I think the second piece to this is the ads. Again, are these ads tightly themed into the right ad groups? Is there a compelling call to action? And I think I have a spreadsheet that guides all the copy that you can write, and I can share that later. Are there any benefit statements? So you have to, in the ad, you have to see, there's two kinds of URLs. One is the actual URL where you want the user to go, and another is called the display URL. So it's like in a funny green color that you see on the ad, but that is not necessarily one that it points to. You can change that, right? So this display ad is more like part of the ad, right? You want to write it in a way that it's interesting. It kind of matches the intent of the user and so on. So you could use the display URL as an ad as well. Okay, so analyze ads, analyze campaigns. So we talked about search impression share, which is the first item on the list that you want to analyze. Lost rank. What is the lost budget? So for example, a lot of startups and a lot of folks, they do amazing keyword research, write amazing ads, everything is amazing, but they're very, they put their budget really conservatively. But when you do that, Google, basically think about supply and demand, right? There is a demand of queries coming in through Google, and Google is sitting in the middle, and then there is this supply of advertisers for those keywords, right? And this supply is in a form of keywords, and in the form of bids, and in the form of budgets, right? So I'm sitting here as Google. If I see somebody with a very low budget, but lots of awesome keywords, I have to figure out that, I want to make sure they don't overspend their budget, right? So I'm going to be conservative matching them up with the queries, right? So you're limiting Google in its ability to send you traffic if you have a very low budget, right? So when you put a budget, it doesn't mean Google will spend it, right? So we usually try to aim for higher budgets so that Google has enough space to rank you higher. Otherwise, Google will say, oh, this guy is a little guy. I'm not going to give him much traffic. I have this competitor X here who has a huge budget. I'm going to give them all the traffic. So be careful of managing it well. And search lost is budget tells you it's basically a measure of your ad not showing up because your budget was low. So the other huge part of it is days of the week, hours of the day. There is reports that you can get from Google AdWords on how your ad is performing. What days are better, what times are better than others, and if you can tune, there's an automated bidder as well based on time, so you could turn your ads on and off and change the bids based on your schedule. But first you need to know what times of the day, hours, what days of the week, hours of the day convert better than others. So if you do this, you're, I think, better than 80% of advertisers out there, because, and maybe more than 90%, 95% of startups out there, because they just don't know that you can do this. And it's a simple thing to do, but it's very powerful. Okay, so review days and times, the majority of traffic is coming to you. And then again, it tells you, when you look at the data, how do you analyze and what do you actually do, right, to make it better? Okay, so, and this is telling you how to deal with negative keywords, low quality score keywords. and how to go about doing it. And these are from Google, best practices. How do you know if your ads are working? How do you know your AdWords ads when you? Oh, the other thing is, sorry, you want to write at least 3 ads per ad group. That's kind of the best practice, or even more, 5, because you never know which one will convert. And if you're getting CTR of 1.5, like, it's Google's telling you there's something wrong with search intent or relevancy, right? And again, it decreases your quality score, which increases your CPC, which increases your cost per acquisition, right? So you want to be very careful. It's all linked together. And then it talks about a bunch of things you can do with it. Okay, then if you have a ginormous amount of keywords, you can use, and you don't know how to use the AdWords interface, the web interface is much easier to use comparatively. But there's a tool called AdWords Editor. That's a Windows-based or Mac-based tool that lets you edit, delete, update things in mass. Like you could do cut and paste, cut and paste a whole campaign and create a similar campaign like that, and all that stuff. So that's a little bit of cumbersome interface, but it's more for bulk edits. All right, thank you guys for your time. Appreciate it.